Hey sis, let's talk about something we've probably whispered across dinner tables, debated in groups, and may have caused some of us to question ourselves. Why does it feel like black men don't like educated or intelligent black women? You've heard the noise from the black sector of the manosphere about your degree means nothing, I'm sure, and it does appear that the black and white sector of these online men's spaces view the topic of clever, smart, or well educated women very differently. This isn't a comparison between the two groups of male views because who really gives a damn about what they say? It's about us, that would be the educated black woman, and an observation focused on the black male sector of this online space because this is the message they give us very directly. So, after I watched Tyler Perry's movie Straw and penned my thoughts on the male oppression towards black women I observed in the movie, and if you have the written version of this essay, you can click on the link. You can go back and check it out. If you're on YouTube, I will drop the link in the description box. So, after I penned this last week, I started to consider the idea around educated black women more deeply, purely because in the movie, Janaya, Tyler's main character, is one of these women, or was on her way to be, but her path was disrupted by a man. To inform my analysis when I wrote this, some research I came across backed up the theory or the notion that education does appear to be a thing that is held against black women, mainly by our own men. The thing is, though, it's not just about the degrees. We didn't work this hard to be told you're too much or, it means nothing. Yet many of us have been made to feel this way. Now, check this out. I hold 2 master's degrees, various other academic certificates. I'm fluent in English and French, and I'm an ex-high school teacher or secondary school teacher if you're from the UK or Europe. It's fair to say I love education and I value it dearly. Black men may not check for women like me generally because of this. They feel some sense of intimidation. But by now, if you've been listening to me or reading my work for a while, you should know me, right? I don't really care about how they feel. And I would never deal with a man who, I'm not intellectually matched to, or a man who can't appreciate my smarts no matter what his race was. That said, I know that for black women who are book smart out there, or women who value intelligence, and it can be disappointing to them when they realize that black men don't generally like it, or have little interest in it. And the manosphere tell us things like your degree means nothing. It led me to think about why this is. So, as women, we can place their issues into context and decenter them and their insecurity around education and or intelligence and still be confident in ourselves, because I believe that understanding their core issues with highly educated or highly intelligent black women can help those of us who need to navigate looking for genuine love with a man if that's what you actually seek, if you want that connection. So, years ago, over a decade ago to be precise, my education level, among other things, became an issue with my first husband, but he knew this was who I am when he asked me to marry him. When I gained my education, showed that I was an effective teacher in the classroom with the kids, which led to a major salary increase and promotion to a school director for my subject, his issues showed. I had to divorce him, and this was only part of the reason why. Add to this, I was so young, I was under 30 at the time. The fact that my education helped qualify me for my achievement was something that really rubbed him up the wrong way. I've observed 5 reasons why they tend to have a problem or dislike an educated black woman. If these points can be understood, soon you will not see their critique of your smarts the same way, and you won't even see these types of men the same way, I promise you. So, reason number 1, the shift in gender roles in their view. Now, this is key because it's in their view. First of all, I think it's important that we need to remember that education was not actually designed by the white patriarchy for women, regardless of their race. We were not sent to school. White women were not educated due to this, let alone black women. Also, in many African cultures, even still today, the girls are not educated in favour for the boys. I learnt this when I read the novel called Nervous Conditions, and if you got hold of the written version of this article, this essay, you will see a link to that book there. In Asia, in their culture, it's been shown to be very similar. It's the same. And I learnt this in the novel I read called Kim Jo Young, born in 1982, which is a fantastic read. The link will be on the essay article or the written version. Now, for the patriarchy generally, it was thought that women were not suited to the academic environment. But if they were given a glimpse of it at the time, and this would have been mainly upper class or middle class white women, they directed them to soft, and I put that in quotations, soft subjects like homemaking, secretarial work, touch typing, yada, yada, yada. We could say this is education that is more supportive to women to fit into the gender role that society had for white women at the time. On the other hand, society taught men to lead, provide, be the man, you know the story. And as the lines blurred and as education opened up to all races and women started to become more educated in different fields and move into other jobs, what happens when the woman beside the man is thriving, self-sufficient, and doesn't need him in ways tradition once dictated a woman to need a man, and or she is no longer qualified to just be a support system in the workplace or just a homemaker. Many black men, like all of us in the black diaspora, are navigating this change and new freedoms in our roles as society has progressed. Sometimes, and this is only sometimes, I'm not going to say with all of them, but with a majority of them, a lot of the time, confidence, education, lack of needing a man in that traditional way, or being more qualified than just being the support in a woman's energy are misread as competition by men. I would say, in particular, and certainly with my experience, I've had this, and this is something that we can often see with black men because they really are not the driving force of the traditional patriarchy as the world knows it. So when black women get along, in quotation marks, and education is the leg up, in quotation marks, there's a problem. And it naturally shifts our role, again in quotation marks, and ability to be self sufficient in ways that can impact them when they are not the dominant men in patriarchy or society already. So you see, it's all about them and how they see your role changing, not necessarily you and how you see your role, but how they see your role. What I've realised and observed and had the experience of also, and I've heard other women say it, is that they often like to compete with women because they find it hard due to society, and we could say due to racism as well, to compete with other men outside of the community due to that thing called patriarchy, which typically does not include them as a male group simply because it wasn't designed to. They know it, and by now you should know it and see it. I must pause here and say that if they really wanted to compete with other men, they could try. You did it. Didn't you compete with other women to get that job, get that degree, or whatever goal it is that you achieved? Maybe in some cases you were up against other men as well. You had no choice. If you wanted to earn a living and create a life you deserve or achieve your goal or whatever your motivation and drive was, you had to go out into the world and face that competition. So, should we feel sorry for them? Nope. And you know I was going to say this, I hope. Should we understand their feelings? Yes. That's your choice if you want to, because we face the same things they do with racism and race exclusion. But I don't want you to forget, we face all this with an added dash of sexism on top. So I don't advocate for too much sympathy, because we have to remember that the world that we are currently living in and the way society operates, it doesn't tend to favour women regardless of her race. There's always like a male dominance. Should we stop going after goals, dreams, and education because of how it makes them feel about roles? Girl, fill in this blank. What do you think I'm going to say? In a nutshell, your education shifts the role dynamic in their view, not necessarily your view as a woman, and how they view where your education could take you, meaning your role as a woman, in their view again, could change. And that's, I would say, one thing they predominantly don't like. It's not about you personally, it's about where you could be headed with that education and a threat to your role and how they see it. The second reason, or the second observation I've come across why they typically don't like highly intelligent or well educated black women, it's simply because they can't play in the face of a book smart and a street smart woman. This is probably one of the biggest problems. They can't play with you, period. A woman who is well educated or has a love for learning and using her mind is going to naturally be more of a logical thinker and able to poke holes in things they say or things that they do, and use her own mind to make decisions that are best for her. You're more likely to be able to hold your ground and state your viewpoint, okay, and make your point without getting loud, personal, or even, I hate to say it, but stereotypical, quote unquote, as a black woman. You're more likely to be able to do all this without having to take it there. Do you see what I mean? Because you have a different way of communicating. It throws them off. You're different. With a woman like you, there's always a chance you'll walk away from what's not serving you, what you're not looking for, or just the rubbish any man, regardless of his race or who he is, may bring to your doorstep. That's if you're not operating or dating from a sense of desperation. Your energy shifts again. As a woman, hopefully, you have higher self-esteem naturally. They can see it. Plus, with your book smarts and street smarts, and by this I mean understanding men, that is to say, it's a problem for them to mess you around and treat you badly. It's harder. Add to this, if you're pretty, oh my God, sis, it's a wrap. They don't like beauty on top of it also, okay? Because your beauty and your education or intelligence gives you more chances in the world and with other men. In particular, and especially, men more educated than the man that says your degree means nothing. They sense it on you. It's likely to give you an extra no shit kind of attitude to what you will and won't stand for. Lastly, you're more likely to see yourself as the prize and worthy of more, and you're more likely to not be out here worshipping these men. And that's a hard one for a group of men to swallow who constantly say they are the prize. So let that sink in. The third reason and observation that I would say and that I've come across as to why, they don't like highly intellectual or highly intelligent or a black woman who is well educated or any of these things is insecurity and inferiority complex. Now, black men, just like you and I, are disproportionately impacted by systemic racism. This is true, we can't get away from this. And in this situation, it's hard not to internalize a sense of inadequacy, especially next to someone who seems to be winning. That would be the educated or intelligent woman in a system that is designed to be pitted against you both. It's not just or only your success being the problem. It could make some of them feel like less. My point here is that understanding that their dislike of educated women or intelligent women or saying things like your degree means nothing is partly coming from this place of insecurity and or inferiority complex. If they literally some of them feel like nothing already because of, society and what's going on, they need to try to make you feel the same. We're in the same system, remember? It's the only way they can justify it. That or saying your women's rights give you a leg up in the world. It really does not. All it does is offer protection for us as women. There's no guarantee about anything just because of women's rights. So when a man is feeling, or when a man is not feeling, I should say, like a man, in quotation marks, in society, compared to how other groups of men may or are seen as men in their view. And by this, I mean these other men may be seen to have power, status, a say in how the world runs, or even it appears to them that other men that they have a say in how their women or women in general operate more than they do as men. Then here we come with our education and intelligence that they associate with the white man. It gives them a sense of insecurity and inferiority. This, sadly, is not something you can fix or should try to fix. It's here educated or highly intelligent Black women, or women in general, you could even say, try to dumb themselves down for a man so they don't feel inferior. This is the man. I wouldn't advise it. If a man can't appreciate your smarts and celebrate you for it, in the long term, trust me, it's going to turn ugly. It really will. So the fourth reason, now this is a key one, and this one might be a bit hard for many of us to swallow, but I think we just have to brace ourselves for it. The fourth reason or observation that I would say that why Black men don't like educated or highly intelligent Black women is down to a simple thing such as different values. I hate to say this so much, but generally speaking, they don't value education like that. There you go, I've said it. Regardless of whether you are or not a educated or intelligent Black woman, to many Black men, it's just not something they see as valuable. Not only does research show us this from when I did my analysis for the movie Straw, while looking at Jania's character, this became clear to me as a high school teacher, a secondary school teacher if you're from the UK or in Europe, with Black boys compared to Black girls as students. There was a differential here though. I found that Black male students with parents who were actually African, they did value it more. And it could be, as I said, because in the African culture, they tend to push boys academically more so than girls. And this is reflected in the book I read that I mentioned earlier called Nervous Conditions. It also became clear to me from over a decade of being in the classroom and working in different schools, I never once bumped into a Black male teacher. And that was just so sad for me. A Black female teacher, yeah, we were there. Of course we were. But there were no men. Sadly, when there is a mismatch in values or any value, not just education, that's when we as women hear Black men or men saying things like your degree means nothing, because to them, sis, it literally means nothing. Okay, Black women need to understand this because education is not something they tend to value as a collective. Maybe individual Black men, of course. I'm not saying that there's no Black men out there at all that don't value education at all. That would be, a false assumption. But what I am saying is the collective, okay? As a group, the collective, I wouldn't say that they value it like that. And the reason why I won't be persuaded otherwise to think that as a collective they do value it as much as Black women or even more than Black women is because, sis, There's not enough evidence to support the argument that as a collective they do. You know, they're not highly represented in the field, either as students or as the academic professionals. As I explained to you, I made a clear observation in over a decade of being a teacher myself in the classroom. There is a clear difference between how black boys and black girls view education. Now, we could argue this could be down to the system, down to how, you know, teachers view I'm not going to say black boys, black students. Yes, we can have that discussion, but to be honest with you, I don't think that's 100% the problem. They just don't value it. It's at this point, educated black women need to decide if they're willing to compromise on such differences when dating. My advice would be, if you are an educated black woman or an intelligent black woman and this is something you value or see as key and it's clearly who you are, you need to pay close attention to any man's reaction to how you feel about what it is that you value. It's almost like you could say, or I would say, education is linked to something that they don't want to be associated with because they have other values. That's another way to put it. I mean, think about what black males put in their music, their raps, and how uncool it is for them to be in school and successful. What comes to mind here, the TV show, if you're of a certain age, you'll probably remember it, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will Smith's character didn't appreciate education at all, but Carlton, his cousin, did. If you're a certain age, we kind of all grew up on this programming via the show, and who do you think would have probably influenced within the black community more, Carlton or Will? Obviously, Will's character. The last thing I'm going to say on this point about different values is that when people value things, they show up in numbers, okay? That's a given, that's obvious. In terms of black men, they show up in sports, music and entertainment a lot. That's the value, not so much the world of academics. Finally, the fifth observation and reason I've concluded that, you know, black men typically don't like well-educated or highly intelligent black women is because education opens doors in the longer term, okay? Not necessarily straight away. Again, that goes back to a mismatch with values. What is it that you want? Do you want something in the long term, or do you want instant gratification now? With this point here, education being something that can open up doors in the longer term, not necessarily now, what we need to remember is when someone is educated, regardless of who they are, there's nothing keeping you trapped in a dead-end, low-paying job you hate if you are lucky enough to educate yourself. This is because a higher paying bracket and more varied or even a more skilled workload is usually attached to education. Respect and recognition are also gained. Your social mobility is increased, and all this adds to your ability to move up, achieve, win, create a lot of abundance. You get the idea for yourself. Should you decide to be a career woman rather than focus on men, family, children, or even if you decide to do both, you know, that opportunity is still there when you educate yourself. When a man does not value education, they have not connected the dots between the here and now and what could be opened up in the future with education. But you have, as someone who's decided to pursue this path. Also, what this means is that a man is no longer the center of a woman's world who pursues education. And when a man is not a woman's everything, or she has other interests, he can feel threatened by this. I'll give you another example and use myself. I love to read. It's one of my most favourite things to do in the world. I ran a book club in London for 5 years and stopped because I moved away from that area. My first husband hated it because it would take me away from him just for one Saturday morning a month, okay, you know, to hang out with a group of other book smart, book loving women with some wine, some conversation, and a good time that he was excluded from. And clearly, this excited me. This was something that I really looked forward to, as nerdy as it sounds to you, or maybe not to you, because if you're listening to this as an educated woman, you can probably appreciate the fact that I love to read. It would take me away, you know, it would take me away, and that would excite me. I'd get to sit down, talk about the last book that we read over the month, and have a good old time. And I obviously, this meant that I had other interests, and that really rubbed him the wrong way. The other thing about education is that often it can be a long game to success. Degrees take time. There's no two ways about it. Degrees will take time to achieve, but can offer many rewards for the holders at the end after that longevity of your study. In a nutshell, if I was to break this down very, very simply, you know, as a response, why they tend to not like educated or highly intelligent black women, it's because an educated woman, regardless of her looks, can have more chances in life, more opportunities, and there's always a chance of you being exposed to other men who are more on your level, in quotations, okay? Be it intellectually, financially, or even generally more compatible how you see the world because of your open and sharp mind. This is why they don't like an educated woman. Add to this, black men seem to naturally not value the classroom or any form of learning. That's been evidenced by research. You know, there's research to back that up. This creates that mismatch. If you're a woman who is into all this, you're going to find a mismatch with a man who doesn't value education. There's nothing keeping you stuck on a man like this as an educated woman. And that, my lovely, book smart, intelligent, cerebral sis, is the bottom line. That is why they don't like it. These men can't contain you. They have less control over you and your minds, and they find it harder to play with you. Put all of this into context and stop worrying about dumbing yourself down to be with a man that has what it appears to be mainly insecurities over a path you have taken or a part of yourself. In fact, if you feel like you need to dumb yourself down just to be with this guy or to increase his ego or self-worth, you're probably not with someone who's going to make you happy long term. Now, I want to end this with a word to the wise. A man who does not value education will work overtime, sis, to pull you off of your path, or they will become annoyed or jealous that you dedicate time to it, as well as when you achieve it, you'll have the same problem. I was about 20 at the time and was in a serious relationship with a guy who tried all this, and even went as far as to tell me he had a problem with the time I dedicated to studying. This was not my first husband. I broke up with this first guy, then I met him a few years later. So in my experience, I've had two different men in my life demonstrate that the mismatch thing that research has shown between educated black women and uneducated men, or men who are uninterested in education, be it a black man or any race of man, it really is a thing, and it's not worth the headache. The research, sadly, is right about this mismatch thing. Do not settle. Take this area of who you are very serious when deciding who to partner with. Don't let it throw you off your path, or like Janiyah in Tyler Perry's movie Straw, don't let it totally fuck up your life. So much love. I'll catch you in the next one. The Black Woman Essayist.